All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. Today, I want to talk about something a little bit different. I have with me Marcia Pender, and we're going to be talking about the loss of a child. And she's going to tell us a little bit about herself and her story. But we want to bring awareness to this within our community because a lot of people do not talk about these things. So Marcia, if you can, just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your story, and then I will ask you some questions.
Okay. My name is Marcia Pender. I have been married for 12 years. I have 3 children right now, and we have one angel baby. And our story is in 2010, we had a stillborn birth. It was actually our last pregnancy. It was going to be our 4th child. And I was 38 weeks along. So at that point, you're good and prepared to have a kid. There's no, I've never had any miscarriages or anything like that. So there was no signs or anything like that I was concerned about. I've had, even to the point where I've had all my kids vaginally as well. So it's like, you're not really thinking that it would happen to you. But at 38 weeks, I went into a doctor's appointment for them to not find a heartbeat, and had to deliver immediately because when you're that far along, you don't really know when the baby stopped breathing. And so they were concerned about not contamination, but like a blood poisoning that could, like sepsis or whatever. And so I had to deliver immediately, no buildup. Thank God my mom was visiting, and because I was about due anyway, so she was there. And so she kept my kids, but we went over immediately. You're not even mentally prepared, but we had to deliver our 38-week baby full term at that point, and you don't get to take it home. So that was a big blow because we were not prepared. So, but yeah, that's essentially the gist of the story, to make it real short.
Wow. So when you went in to deliver, did you feel like the doctors were very supportive of you? I know a young lady that I talked to earlier, she said that the midwife was very kind of matter of fact with her, to the point, didn't really show her any compassion. In your situation, do you feel like the doctor or the midwife showed you any type of compassion, or were they just kind of like, this is what it is?
Right. I found that my doctor was very matter of fact. Let's just get you over. Let's just go ahead and deliver. And the midwife actually showed more compassion. She was a woman of color. She wasn't Black, but I think she was Indian or Middle Eastern or something like that. And at the time, she was actually pregnant herself, and we were the same. We were the same. Like, she was 38 weeks as well.
Oh,
so we got pregnant at the same time. Her due date was the same week as mine. And because she was even concerned about whether or not she would be present to deliver the kid, because she was like, look, we the same weeks, but if I'm still haven't delivered, I'll still be your midwife. And I said, great. But actually, I found that, when she found out as well, because she was there that day, she actually went into labor. It bothered her so much. She ended up delivering the same day that I ended up having the stillborn birth. She wasn't even showing it. She wasn't like she was dilating, but she wasn't like in labor. But I think it caused so much stress, and she was so concerned because, when you're pregnant, you kind of, it could have been me kind of thing. And I think that she was very compassionate in that sense, but I wasn't even aware she was in labor, because she did go on to deliver my baby, and she immediately left, and she went to another room. I had no clue until we were done, and I went for my checkup in a couple of days, and I found out she had her baby the same day. I was like, oh gosh. So she went into like labor that same day. They was like, yeah, she was so worried, she went into labor. So, but yeah, my midwife was a lot more compassionate, which is why I chose to use her for the 4th baby. I had the doctor for the 3rd for William, and I found that she was just very I had some concerns with her. She, like I said, very cold. She was, unfortunately, not to be judgmental, but she was a white woman. She just didn't seem to be very concerned about my pain levels, about, what I was going through. She over medicated me a lot. And my husband did particularly care for the over medication, especially with my background with my mom and both my dad having addiction issues.
Mhm.
So, that's something that I kind of am aware of with my life, and I try not to indulge because I
Mhm.
don't know if I will fall into the rabbit hole either.
Right.
So, but she medicated me with Ambien because I couldn't sleep, and she gave me an unlimited refill.
Wow.
And so my husband was concerned about that because I was choosing, instead of trying to go to sleep, just medicating. Oh, it's just easier to take the pill. And I'm already a sleepwalker. So I was doing a lot of things in my sleep that was dangerous while being pregnant. And he was
Mhm.
like, "You're not aware. I think you don't need to take it." But she would enable me to take it because when you need your sleep, and it just became the source of contention in the house. And so we just decided to just not use it and then use a different person within the office. So
Mm.
we went with the midwife, and she was a lot more thoughtful and giving me other ways of trying to deal with sleep. And um, she just was a lot more, just aware and compassionate, we found. And she was just really, really good with being supportive of pain and what I was going through. So we liked her a lot better.
Wow. Well, that's good that you were able to see the differences because a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times people don't even get to notice those things about their provider until they're in the middle of giving birth. So,
That part.
yeah, so that was really good. Um, and now, after you had experienced this loss, did you feel supported by your friends and family?
Not my family so much, but there's baggage with that. Like, my backstory with my family.
Hmm.
But my mom was very supportive. What I found, hindsight being 2020, is that you think your loss is yours and that other people aren't losing when you are going through it. And you
Hmm.
kind of start blocking out other people's um, way of grieving. And if I could do it differently, I think I would. Now, looking back, I didn't give my mom the place to grieve her grandchild because I was just
Hmm.
caught up in my stuff.
Hmm.
And I thought, well, my husband has a right to grieve, but I didn't think of maybe I should have allowed her to see the baby. Maybe I
Yeah.
should have found a way to comfort her as well, because I mean, she's a mother and it's her grandchild. And so I just don't think that I was as thoughtful
Hmm.
outside of myself. And I know that's really hindsight's 2020. When you're caught up in your grief, you're not really thinking about other people's grief. But
Hmm.
that is one of the biggest regrets, is that I don't think I acknowledged my children's grief. I didn't acknowledge my mom's grief. I only thought my grief and my husband's grief was like real
Hmm.
and like it was our baby. So,
Yeah.
sibling grief. Oh, they never saw the baby, so they can't be that sad about it. Oh,
Hmm.
my mom has grandchildren, so she doesn't have a reason to feel a loss. And but yes, my husband was very supportive. My mom was very supportive.
Hmm.
The children were really good about being there for all of us and each other. I had an
Hmm.
older kid at the time. I think my oldest was 11.
Hmm.
So she was good and understanding of what was going on, and she took a lot of like, I guess, mommy duties when I was in the hospital, and helping my mom help her with the kids and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I was going to church at the time, so I had a really big supportive church community
Hmm.
that helped me at the time, to the point where, I mean, they even paid for all the funeral arrangements and stuff like that, because we prided ourselves on a family of being prepared. I don't want to go fund my funeral. Like, my
Hmm.
husband and I both had insurance. So did all of our children. We just didn't have insurance on this kid because it wasn't born yet. So it was like,
Right.
gosh, no, it's like, how do you now pay for a funeral for a baby that you weren't even prepared to leave for?
Hmm.
Mind the expense that we've spent already in preparing for the kid, for the kid, we're
Yeah.
tapped out. Like, what in the world? So it was nice that our church community stepped up, and all of the congregants just got together, and they just, pulled the money together and helped us with that part that we didn't have to stress out about.
Wow, that's wonderful that you were able to have this support system. Um,
Yeah.
and you talked about how you had bought all of this stuff for this baby and you were prepared for this baby. So, how did you cope with this? Because now you have this nursery, you have all of these baby clothes, you have prepared for this child, and you come home and you don't have a baby.
Right.
How did you cope with this?
Um, my husband really just kind of took in the matter of a day or two with my church community. There was always somebody pregnant within church. So it was kind of one of those things where he had to, it wasn't go through it alone, but he was like, okay, I know I'm going to have to be the one to step up, and within 24 hours, I've got to get this stuff out of the house, right? Or move it somewhere. I did tell him that I felt like our roles were very reversed in the sense that I took on more of a masculine energy with my grief, and my husband's very much so more, he was a lot more emotional than I was with it. They say mommy cries, daddy sighs. I was the sigher, he was the crier. So he took on the getting the crib and getting the, all that stuff. And he, donated it to family or friends within the church community that were having babies. They were young, young couples who were in the midst of, their first baby and could use stuff that hadn't bought it yet. So we ended up donating it a lot to people that we knew. And the clothes, he kept the clothes and allowed me time to think about what I wanted to keep, if that makes sense. That way I could, and I didn't want to keep it all, but I'm more of a sentimental person. There's like, I like to keep things that mean something. And so I ended up keeping one or two of the items from the clothes that we bought, and the rest of it we just donated. But he really took on the reins with getting things out. My mom helped him as well with getting things out of the house. So when I came home, I wouldn't have to deal with it or see it.
Wow. Well, that was very good that he was able to think, about that, because you went to the doctor. Now we got to go straight to the hospital. Now I'm at home. So, just to be able to have that thought of, let me make sure that when she gets home, she doesn't have to deal with this was a great thing.
Yeah, it was a blessing.
Yes.
It was hard on him though. It's very, what's the word? Like now looking back on it, it's like cruel. It's something that you go through on your own. And it's something that's like, I'm doing it for someone else, but I'm going through it too. Like I wish somebody could have done it for me, kind of thing. Like if we both could have just given that duty to someone else, but then how do you give it to someone else? Because they don't know the value of, well, would they want to get rid of this? Do they want to keep this? Should I touch it? Am I being disrespectful? Because I know some women who've gone through stillborn birth and they didn't want to touch anything. They wanted to keep everything exactly the way that it was and part with it when they were ready. So it just depends on the couple and the person. I'm just glad that we were on the same page. That's a blessing for us, because had I wanted to keep everything and he didn't, or vice versa, that could have been a little source of contention, because if I don't want to see it, but he needs it still, how do we compromise with that? That's something that we didn't have to deal with. Thankfully, we were on the same page with most things. And so we just agreed that it was just best to just give things away, be a blessing to someone else during our time of struggle. It made us feel better to help people. But the good thing about our marriage is what we have found is that it's not that we thrive, but we're at our best when we're going through a crisis. Terrence and I know how to cling and to cleave, and we got. Stuff like this just doesn't cause division in us. If nothing else, it brings us close. So we just cleave to each other, and we were like, okay, we got. How are we going to get through this? And we give each other what we need. If I need space, which is what I wanted, and he needs a shoulder to cry on, we just have to balance that out. And so I gave him his shoulder to cry on, and he gave me my space and not judged me for not being like not crying as if I don't care. I kind of cry on the inside. Like I grieve on the inside. I stay busy. I cleave to my children. Let me be thankful for the children that I have. I am blessed that I have 3 children. I kind of just start clinging onto what do I have to be thankful for? But also respecting that you can do that and still be upset and angry that your 4th child still isn't here. So it's that balance of not judging while you're trying to get your respect to grieve the way that you want to as well. So, and that's really difficult to do. I can see how some people struggle with that, because it's really hard to not place judgment on someone when they're not grieving the same way that you grieve.
Wow. Yeah, that's
Mm-hmm.
that's really good, to say that you guys were able to come together, because in times like these, sometimes people end up getting divorced
Yes.
because they can't deal with it, and one
Mm-hmm.
person needs something and the other person just can't give it. So that was
Exactly.
really good that you guys were able to come together throughout this. Um, Now let's talk about some of we talked about this before, some of the dumb
Mm-hmm.
things that people said to you that maybe weren't as sensitive, some things that people probably shouldn't say to other people who are going through this. So let's school the people so that they won't be out here saying things to people that may cause them to feel a certain type of way, or
Mm-hmm.
evoke a certain type of emotion. So what are some things that people shouldn't say that maybe was said to you?
Some of the ones that stuck out, because a couple of people almost got cussed out. I'll just be like, "Let me hold my mule." I swear, I know they mean well, and I'll preface it with, I know most people say things in a silent awkwardness. They want to say something, they don't know what to say, and so they blurt things out that sound good, and it brings no comfort to us at all.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the things that were said were, "Oh, well, the baby's in a better place," as if being with me wasn't okay. Okay, that's how we take it. Okay.
Right.
Okay, so my home with my three children and my loving marriage and a grandmother who dotes all over her grandchildren, that wasn't a better place.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it just doesn't make sense to us, because it just, what are you saying? Okay, so the other thing was, um, she was too perfect to be here. Okay. Oh, I guess I'm flawed, and me living, I guess I wasn't a perfect, because then you make it about yourself, or about, well, what about my other children? Are my other children just like
Right.
horrible babies because they weren't taken? Like, so then you start looking at all your other children. It's not kind to my children because people have said that in front of them. And so not necessarily hurt my feelings too much, but definitely those things I remembered with my oldest, took it very personal. Like, well, what does that say about me? Like,
Mm-hmm.
am I so imperfect that I got left? Like, what does that mean, Mom, that she was so perfect she didn't need to be here? God took her back. Like, okay, well, I'm not going to explain stupidity, but it's a way of trying to say that she was just a great baby or something. So I don't know. People make weird comments. Another thing was, "Oh, well, you could just try again. You could just try again." And most people weren't aware. First of all, you can't replace babies. That
Mm-hmm.
baby is a whole identity on itself. So even if we had wanted another child, that was going to be a whole new baby that's different, and that my loss is still gone.
Mm-hmm.
But most people didn't know. My husband had a vasectomy because we were done. At fourth one was the last baby. We were good with that one. We thought this was going to round us out really good. And so there was no having more babies.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband, that made him feel so bad. Like, well, we can't try again. And then it made him feel like, well, should I just go get it reversed? So
Mm-hmm.
that way we can try again. I'm like, no, we said we were good. I mean, no, we didn't know we were going to lose her, but were we good? She's still our fourth kid. We're still fine. We're still a parent of four kids. One just happened to not make it, but I still feel content and feel whole. I don't feel a need to replace. And if you're good, I'm good. Like, but I'm definitely not going to be doing it because other people think that we can try again. But that whole try again, as if your baby can just be replaced by another baby, is just ridiculous. And it's not kind. It's not thoughtful. Like I said, you're just trying to fill empty space. But this is what we're thinking when you say it to us, is as if we can replace the child that we have no desire to replace, even if we're going to have more children. That baby is still Aislinn Renee Pender, and no other baby is going to replace that one, if that makes sense. And I think the most cruel thing that I think somebody was intentionally trying to be cruel about was, well, oh gosh, like as if it has no salvation because it didn't get to claim the blood of Jesus. Like, I'm just like, so the baby, you mean to tell me that a whole perfect baby, because it didn't literally get to profess its life to Christ, is somehow doomed to hell? I don't know your God, but I don't
Wow.
want that one. I don't want that one.
Wow.
Okay,
Wow.
so yeah, those what I call like super Christian, those ones that like go and protest at like veterans funerals and stuff like that. It'd be those people.
Yeah.
Like I don't understand that one. So the baby has no soul. It's doomed to hell because it didn't live long enough to profess the blood of Jesus. So, all of that.
Wow.
I gave that one no energy, but the
Wow.
gall that somebody would have to come up to a grieving mother, that could have completely devastated me. Like that could have sent me over the edge. I could have been suicidal, in a depression. And thankfully, I wasn't. But at the same time, I'm just like, you have no clear picture of what state I'm in. And I don't even think your intent was to bring me comfort, because to tell me that my child is doomed to hell because they didn't get to profess the name of Jesus. I don't know what your intent is, but it definitely didn't mean me well. I do feel that. So,
Wow.
but yeah.
Wow, I can't believe
All of that.
somebody actually said that to you. Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm at a loss for words. Wow. Oh my. So, what advice would you give to a couple who may have gone through something like this? What would you say to maybe the woman who has just had a stillbirth and really doesn't know what to do? Maybe she's lost, maybe she's depressed. How could you encourage her? What would you say to her?
I think my biggest struggle that it took me years to deal with was that it wasn't my fault.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow you blame yourself and thinking that you did something. Did I not take enough vitamins? Did I not eat right? Did I turn wrong? Did I sleep wrong? Something. And
Mm-hmm.
you end up thinking that it's something that you did. And even to a certain extent, even your husbands can think, well, did she do something or whatever? And I think just coming to terms that these things just happen. Sometimes it just happened. For me, it was a cord issue. The cord just got wrapped and tangled. But somehow you still make it your fault.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so if what I try to tell women who go through this is that there was absolutely nothing you could have done, and it makes you feel so helpless because having an answer is better than nothing sometimes. So you try to make up excuses as to why it happened, and it just makes we need some kind of finite thing. And there really is no answer. And I think it's just, if we can find a way to accept that there was nothing that we could do, these things do happen, and it can happen to anyone at any point in time. It could have happened earlier. It could have happened in the 7th month, and it happened to happen. I was a late term stillborn, which is more rare, but it happens.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's just one of those things. I think my biggest thing is always trying to tell women that it's not your fault. There is nothing that you did or could have done to prevent it. And once I think I started accepting that actually brought me a lot of peace, that it's not my fault. I did what I could do. I was a healthy vessel. I did everything in my capabilities of bringing forth, a healthy baby, but things happen. And, that's one bit of advice. Second advice would be to allow each other to grieve the way that you grieve, and try not to judge the other person. We're all different. I'm not much of a crier. I'm not an empath. I'm working on that. Like nobody would ever say I'm like a super compassionate person,
Mm-hmm.
but because it's more, I'm afraid of emotion, and I'm afraid of like vulnerability. So I try to mask that stuff, but I would say at least have a healthy line of respect of, if your spouse or you or whomever is a crier, let them cry. Let them grieve. However long it takes them. I think when something's unhealthy. So
Mm-hmm.
be there for your spouse in unhealthy situations. But crying isn't unhealthy, but laying in the bed for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks probably is. That's when you probably need to be supportive and get some help.
Mm-hmm.
I liked for us, comfort came in memorializing. So we did whatever we needed to do to memorialize the situation. We took molds of her feet. We took molds of her hands. We kept her baby blanket. We did a private burial because that brought us comfort. Some stillborns, you actually can skip a whole thing, and you can, the funeral home can take care of the remains. But if you want to do something, like, there's a place that we can go and we can grieve. We buried her. We had a service. We were able to make her real to us, because unfortunately, stillborns don't get birth certificates. Stillborns don't get death certificates. It's as if they didn't exist,
Wow.
you know?
Wow.
And I think that can bother people. It's like I had a whole child, like literally a whole baby. It was 38 weeks. I had a whole baby, okay? I had to birth that baby
Mm-hmm.
just like any other way. There was no other way to get it out besides inducing labor and birthing a child. And you need to tell me that it gets acknowledged with no life. None. You
Wow.
get nothing if that baby didn't take a breath. And that is hurtful because you still have to birth the whole baby, and it grew in you. You felt it. You get to hold it. You get to do all those things, and then you get no acknowledgement that the baby was ever present. So I do know that my hospital does a really great job with, they have services that
Mm-hmm.
come in and they will present you with, it's like a certificate. It is not legal in any sense of the word, but it gives babies birth. It gives babies weight. Name is on it, and it has a little seal from the charitable organization that does it. They hand crochet an outfit because a lot of times people don't realize when you have a stillborn birth, you were not prepared for it. So when you give birth, there are no clothes. Like you didn't bring anything, and
Mm-hmm.
your baby's not presentable to have any pictures because you didn't bring anything. So this organization hand crochets little dresses for girls, and I think little outfit onesies for the boys with the
Mm-hmm.
blanket so that the baby can be wrapped up in it. So if you don't have that service, if you have the sound mind enough for someone to bring you clothes,
Mm-hmm.
memorialize it so you can take a picture. You're going to want it. You're going to want it. You might not think you want it in the moment, but it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. That's the
Right.
way I say. We made her a little box of things we can go to if anyone in the house just needs to go to it. It has her, like I said, her little cast in there. It has her blanket in there. It has her picture in there. And it's
Mm-hmm.
a nice little box that we did. But just advice, like I said, just would be to be there for each other, understand that you both lost,
Mm-hmm.
and um, nobody's loss is greater than the other. You both lost, so
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't your baby and not his, and his baby and not yours. And if you can remember to also include any supportive family into it, because they lost too. Like I
Mm-hmm.
said, it's the only thing that I think hindsight being 2020, I would have done differently is I would have had my kids come and sit with the baby, hold the baby. I would have given my mom an opportunity to make peace and get closure as well, because I just denied them all that, thinking I was saving them from something.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not having to deal with it, but they were still dealing with it regardless.
Mm-hmm.
So, but thankfully nobody's like offended. So,
Right.
but yeah.
Wow. I did not know that they didn't give people a birth certificate or a death certificate. That's
Mm-mm,
crazy. The baby was
nothing,
still a person, so to not give them anything. Wow.
nothing,
Wow.
nothing.
Wow. That
You
is
get nothing.
very, very sad that they don't
It
do that.
is. And you find that out in the moment. Like they come and they tell you that. And it's a very matter of fact thing. The doctor will come in and they'll say, okay, well, here's the situation. Essentially, because the baby took no breath, the baby will get no validation of life. You will not get a birth certificate. You will not get a death certificate, but you can have a service if you'd like. So it's kind of like, okay, well then if I don't have a service, what happens? Oh, well, the hospital will expose of the remains. I'm just like, well, dang, okay. All
Wow.
right, well, let's deal with it. And you only have like, how much time did they give us, babe? At the hospital, they said that we had to make decisions about the remains before they just legally deal with it. Like
maybe an hour, if that.
it was like the day. It was like the day. So I'm sitting up here spazzing
Wow.
out because we didn't have no insurance, right? Like I said, so I'm trying to figure out, okay, well, funeral home, and we got to get somebody to pick up the remains, and you
Mm-hmm.
have like 24 hours to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like I said, luckily at the time, my pastor stepped up and just said, you know what, the first lady and I will deal with finding someone that will come and get the remains,
Mm-hmm.
and not dictating to us the service, because once you start asking people or someone volunteers to help you, you kind of feel like your say so and your wants and desires probably won't really, you can't do anything too over the top, but he was just like, nah, like we will take care of this. You just need to peaceably be able to bury your child and do it with dignity and do it the way that brings you comfort, not
Mm-hmm.
the way that's most economically effective for us. So
Right.
that was a blessing to us because I know a lot of people don't necessarily get that choice,
Mhm.
but we got that choice. And thank God, because it did bring us a lot of peace.
Mhm.
But yeah, like, that was something. That was something.
Yeah, that's awful to be in the middle of trying to grieve and being told that you have 1 hour to make this decision. And you don't get a birth certificate or anything. Like, wow,
Nothing. You
this
get
is
nothing.
wow, this is really eye-opening for me. I've never had to be a doula at a stillbirth. I've heard of people being there
Hmm.
and knowing like kind of what has happened. Wow, I just can't believe that they would do that to someone. Like that's a whole
Yeah,
person. That baby was a person.
I know.
So thank you so much for sharing your story with us, and for allowing us to kind of get some insight. This has really helped me because I didn't know. Wow.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for sharing.
No, no, no. Thank you for asking.